Get the recording going, and we'll see if the live stream is going to cooperate. Hopefully.
Crossing our fingers. Let's say it's a even if it doesn't, we say that we tried, and hopefully for maybe for
There
the
we
next
go.
one,
That's
right?
it. I don't want to anger the LinkedIn gods, but
Right, right. They do have it can be finicky. I do remember that from my time doing. I think I was doing like daily lives at some point during COVID. I remember it was very hit or miss, unfortunately. So it sounds like it doesn't. Sounds like sadly it doesn't change very much. But yeah, no, it'll be cool when it does get going. It'll be great.
there we
Uh,
go. All right. Well, I don't want to waste everyone's time here, so I guess we will just hopefully get started. Ah, John, great to see you. From across the pond, and we have some new friends over in the UK as well. So I hope we'll get a chance to introduce you guys soon. Um, that is lovely to see. Always a pleasure. All right.
Love a good international audience. Welcome, John.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we will get started. And Britt, I'll ask you if you don't mind to let folks in as they come. We always have a few late joiners. And I think I have not created this live stream properly. So I think we will not be going live on LinkedIn, and I'll just be writing some apology little notes after. So, without further ado, let's get started anyway. And my goodness, try that out. Okay. Well, hi everyone. Thanks so much for being here, and excited to see some new faces, as I mentioned. You'll all have to listen to my little introduction, and then we'll dive right into this conversation with Nikhil. I'm really excited about today's session, and we have more than enough to cover our hour. So I want to get started for sure. So I guess. Hello and welcome to our third episode here from our Turnaround Tuesdays series and our new live business podcast where we have no slides, no fluff, just real talk, tips, and turnarounds. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Alexandra Capellas Peters, founder and CEO of Consulta. And for those of you who don't know us, Consulta is a global consulting hub. We connect organizations of all shapes and sizes across industries and regions to trusted, vetted consultants and experts in strategy, HR, marketing, technology, and more that I never remember them all. And unlike traditional firms, we make top tier, excellent consulting services very accessible. We're faster, more affordable, and flexible to your needs. So, why did we create this new podcast? Was to kind of fill the void from some of the other podcasts and series out there that tend to talk a lot about theory and kind of we're a bit fluffy or a little bit academic sometimes when talking about business. So our goal here with all of you is a bit different. We want to talk about real world strategies and stories so you can go back to your organization and put them to use right away. So every other week we are featuring one of our consultants or experts or partners, and we're going to get into some of the practical ways that you can strengthen your business, whether that means resetting your direction or setting up a new strategy to grow. So, a few things before we dive right in. Three things that you'll walk away from today. First is a gift, and our gift to you every week or every other week is a guide. In this case, we have a, oh, we will just ask everyone to mute until later when we will be taking questions. So you'll definitely be leaving with a practical guide. So today, Nikhil's prepared for you a 30-day guide to go from manual chaos to scalable intelligence and how to prepare for using AI agents within your organization. So you'll receive that. Um, just hide our, if we can. Uh, There we go. Okay, sorry. Also, we will invite you to be able to book a free meeting with Nikhil to talk about your own company and your plans and needs from an AI workforce perspective. So you can discuss your own challenges with him. And finally, we have an exclusive offer for you. And every session, we will do that. And so we are offering early access to our new business health audit um, product, which can be used to help kind of diagnose issues within your company and then work with a consultant or on your own to address them. So you don't need to take any notes. We'll share everything at the end. And the session is being recorded, so links will be made available to you to the recording. But again, we don't have any slides. Today is all about a conversation. So already you've been hearing too much from me. I'm anxious to get to introduce you to Nikhil. However, let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll dive right in. So I'm really excited to introduce Nikhil, who's joined us on Cansulta recently. Nikhil is an AI and innovation and product leader. He's got almost 15 years experience turning ideas into reality. And he's worked with big brands like the NFL, Marriott, and L'Oreal, and also with a number of mid-market companies and a number of Y Combinator startups. And he really just is fantastic at helping them turn product ideas and into wonderful products and services that are powered by and with AI. So he's excuse me, with over more than 50 events under his belt, Nikhil's become known for his ability to turn complex ideas about technology and make them feel very human and actionable and exciting. And he doesn't focus just on the buzzwords. He's more interested in helping leaders build AI-driven teams that will actually work smart and not just fast. So what makes him stands out is that his belief that the future of business isn't just about replacing people with machines. It's about amplifying his our human creativity, using the right systems, tools, and mindset. And in this episode today, Nikhil's going to be sharing with us his best practices. So, some practical ways for any company to get started in creating AI assisted teams that will help you think ahead, be proactive, solve problems, and help you focus on what matters most. So, if you've been thinking about bringing AI into your organization beyond just chatbots without losing your soul and doing it in the right way, hopefully today's conversation is the one that'll be really helpful for you. So, my goodness, long introduction. Nikhil, so happy to have you here. Let's get started and welcome.
Yeah, pleasure to be here and great to meet everyone who's jumping in. And thank you so much for the amazing intro,
Right.
Alex. I appreciate that.
Let me get the background figured out once.
Oh, did something, did I hear myself, Alex?
All right. Hopefully that stopped now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
there
I
we
think
go.
so.
So that was the failed attempt at the live stream. So apologies if anyone did just get that little clip. So yes, so speaking of the power of technology. Good. Okay, great.
Go good one.
All right. So, yeah, I guess today's going to be a series of firsts. So, let's dive right in. Nikhil, you have spent 14 plus, so almost 15 years now, helping different companies from startups to large brands, like I mentioned, using AI in very practical, kind of business changing ways. So, can you just give everyone a little bit of a primer about your journey and then what drew you to that work?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to mention that my journey, it hasn't been AI the whole time as much as I wish it was. It definitely has been a large part of it, probably, 9 of my, 14-ish years. But where I got started was actually software engineering. So basically Web
Mhm.
2.0, the rise of, I guess content management systems and services and, rise of like web dev libraries, all that fun stuff from 20 2012 even and onwards. And with that, and open source too, a big part of, if people are familiar with that terminology. So I got started with understanding how engineers solve business problems, right? How I myself, as someone who, because I was an engineer running my own agency, so I had to kind of figure it out, right? I was not per se business educated, but I found a way to make it work, right? Found a way to merge that, business sort of side of things and the technical side of things and turn that into products, services, marketing, sales, all the essential functions. And that doing that for myself helped accelerate my work into working with larger and larger companies, starting with startups, web shops, and then growing into mid-market and then going into enterprise. And so by sort of starting in those places and understanding the key way that technology meets business, that's what really got me into AI, and that's what helped me leverage it in the best way possible. I think often people like to skip steps. I can tell you right now, from someone who coaches and works with executives, they just want to become technical overnight. They just want to start use it and every tool, everything that they see, and it's very exciting. Don't get me wrong. And people should definitely get hands-on experience with Midjourney, ChatGPT, whatever. But if you're not really solving anything, if you're just generating stuff for the sake of it, that's not revenue. That's not money in the bank. That's not that's not even very much innovation. You're just, I mean, it might feel like it, but it's just kind of doing things for entertainment at that point, right? And so that understanding and being able to guide people on that journey and building that story and narrative of how AI is essentially the perfect melding of that business and technology side. And yeah, even before I was doing any of that, I'm glad I learned the ups and downs of doing it and understanding it from a non-AI perspective and then seeing AI accelerate it. So yeah, I'll start with that.
I think that leads in really nicely. We're going to go into a bit more detail later to give people kind of step by step and sort of
Mhm.
some of those practical tips. But before that,
Sure.
based on what you just kind of mentioned, what is the biggest misconception that leaders have right now about AI in their companies, in their organization?
Oh, this one is like by far, and I'm gonna say this like with complete confidence in every single space, enterprise, startups, whatever. It's that your data is ready to be processed by AI. Most of the
Hmm.
time, unstructured. With a lot of people who are building AI right now, there's plenty of I guess the companies behind it are selling. Oh yeah, we can intake structured and unstructured data, but if you do not know how to even leverage your own data, how it's organized, who has access to what or whatever, AI just spits things out. It's just vomit of data and information that some people are supposed to see, some people aren't. And I do believe that it is like by far the biggest complaint too, is that people are, they're significantly accelerating and seeing, momentum with it, but there's just like this, lack of I guess I'm trying to think of the right word for it. I don't know if it's the word like follow through, but it's basically like it's kind of, oh, I know what it is. It's like what's next, right? After you've done this, after you've seen those first reports come out, and after you've seen it, accelerate one part of work, like what is the stack maturity look like? What does the data maturity look like? And I think there's some statistic that it's essentially like 46% of small to medium sized companies are using AI daily, like ChatGPT, but a lot of them don't even have their Google Drive fully figured out. They don't have their Snowflake figured out. They don't have their Notion, even basic things, right? Which these tools even have tools internally to help you structure data. But if you don't know how AI intakes that data, if you don't understand how it optimizes and generates these things, then you're not going to get what you're looking for. You're going to get a lot of very generic things that have your data sort of stapled, but it's not actionable. It's not good for decision making, and that lack of data maturity is by far like the biggest miss and misconception. Readiness, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and thank you for mentioning that because again, like when we, talk about performance and optimization of teams today, and just in general reception to kind of AI and technology, what you just mentioned is, there's a huge difference between how we respond to AI implementation as
Mhm.
users, as individuals, than how we need to be implementing it within an
Exactly.
organization, as you said. So something really important. It seems like just small detail, but I'm sure that everybody here is using some form of AI in their daily productivity, whether it's personally or product or professionally or both. But how different that is from an organizational perspective, right? Um,
Yeah. AI can tell you how to mismanage money. I'll tell you that much for sure. Especially given ChatGPT kind of does tell you what you want to hear, and that unfortunately does. I've seen people. take, the generic advice of the internet, which who knows where that's being pulled from sometime, rather than their own P&Ls and budgets and whatever, to try to make decisions on purchasing and whatever. And that's a risk. That's actually a massive liability, and likely is the Achilles heel of AI right now. Is how many people are telling people they're doing the research, employees or internal, members who have these responsibilities, but are taking shortcuts that should not be taken. So not even, beyond the misconception, a risk, a true liability of any business owner, for any business owner.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and I
Yep.
think that that's something that we've heard a lot, and I'm sure you have as well,
Mhm.
is, a lot of executives and leaders feeling, I think, all of us are feeling a little overwhelmed, right? Again, as an
Yes.
individual, it's overwhelming. There's a new piece of
Mhm.
technology every hour and every minute to
Yeah.
master, promising, all of this efficiency and productivity. And then it's even worse at an organizational level, right? Where it's just like
Mhm.
coming from left and right. We're hearing of the promise of all this tech and what it can do for us, and that seems very overwhelming. What, from your perspective, is at stake for, for us, for these companies, that, if we do take too long to act, what's the
Oh,
fear there? Yeah.
common. I'll quote a common quote, which I think people have heard many times, but it's like AI isn't. I'm not afraid of AI replacing my job. I'm afraid of someone who knows how to use AI replacing my job. Right. I think there's that. I think that's like the most viral quote of LinkedIn lately, is that this idea of, it's it is a competitive advantage, and it's one of the easiest competitive advantages for companies that are really trying to drive fast revenue. No doubt about it at all. And I do champion that, and I think as the evolution of it, as AI moved into agents and moved into orchestration, and now we're calling agentic workforces, right? These are
Yeah.
all part of the necessary. It's the necessary education. It's the necessary 101, 102, 103 that's needed to continue staying ahead of your competition. And to be completely honest, too, it's surprising to see how many people are looking at it as a competitive advantage, but refuse to like learn what AI agents are. Right. I see it in
Mhm.
mid market a lot, where they like cap themselves on that, and they're like, well, no, 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 let's just get like our ChatGPT adoption right first. And while that is correct, it also should definitely by no means mean that you stop looking at what the industry is producing. And again, that hands-on experimentation might not be good for making really crazy decisions, but it's still critical for that education piece and understanding that, executives, VPs, leaders of companies, making sure that they can use the tool before it's adopted by the company. And I think, yeah, I think the risks are, A, you're falling behind your competition, and also you're missing out on opportunities to make like money, right? There are these things start to surface themselves when, for example, if your business can suddenly go from, I think I saw like, small, medium-sized businesses can, I think it can get up to like, and this is some really crazy stuff, but I've seen a 98% increase in like customer resolution times or something like
Mhm.
that, for like on average. Because there's already, again, it's not like enterprise where there might be like millions of customer service requests per day, but the fact that there's at least something that can intake and give a first touch resolution
Yeah.
is very powerful, and does lead to a higher NPS score, leads to a higher CSAT score. So even just customer support, right? If you can augment that, right? And that doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean delete the whole team that's on there, but have people who can manage the agents and work alongside the agents, and that's kind of taken care of and more on autopilot, then other
Mhm.
parts of the business can get attention, rather than
Yeah.
trying to put band-aids and plug holes where there's, constantly customer problems, when really you should be focusing more on your offering and your product. And that in itself is just an opportunity to increase revenue, profit, reputation, audience. Like that's just growth. That's scale opportunity right there. Rather than being bogged down by things that might, admittedly, customers will never just resolve themselves, right? They don't just magically know everything. There needs to be a constant stream. The more you add, the more you do. So yeah, hopefully that kind of answers the question, Alex, and segues well into
Oh
some
yeah, I
of
mean, there's so
the.
much to cover here. It's exciting
Yeah,
stuff, but
yeah,
again, exciting but overwhelming. Where do you see?
sure.
So we're talking to seeing who's on the line here today, and just in
Mhm.
general, looking at leaders in all types of organizations, as you mentioned,
Certainly.
some startups, some much more established, larger enterprises, and then
Mhm.
the whole mid market. We've got people all over the place at all
Mhm.
stages of maturity. And I think without speaking for everyone, like everyone's experiencing some form of a challenge in this great implementation, right? Like there's
Sure.
just too much opportunity right now.
Mhm.
And you kind of have to pick your battles, right? As a leader, you're,
Yeah.
picking where you're investing your time and obviously your resources as well. As you just
Mhm.
mentioned, which aspect of the business, which part of the
Yes.
operation is going to kind of get the attention. Where are you seeing people getting stuck the most as they try to implement AI teams within the company?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'll tell you right now that it's not usually like I'm not seeing people get stuck at what tool to use.
Mm,
Oddly enough, that has been an issue before. Like, do I use WordPress? Do I use Webflow? Right? People right now are pretty like I mean, obviously with the announcement of Agentic from ChatGPT, like that makes it a lot easier, a lot more. It still requires some technical knowledge, but it is a lot more streamlined and it's all in one interface, right? N8N and
mm,
there's FlowWise, there's all these big tools for if you're even if you're and I'm speaking to more mid-market and small business here. There are larger enterprises that do build their own agents for IP purposes, security purposes. But if you are trying to use certain tools like there's and also by the way, I should mention even if you are trying to build your own thing for IP purposes or whatever, there are tons of libraries, Databricks, Microsoft. I mean, they literally release new tools to build agentic workforces every day, right? And it's written in Python, it's written in PHP, it's written in every programming language under the sun. So for those people who might be technical on this call, like don't worry, like there's just as much for you as there is for non-technical as well. And that's the beauty of it. So tooling and the actual call it the first touch adoption is definitely not the big bottleneck that I'm seeing. I think everyone has options and feels very comfortable with the option that they find that fits their technical to non-technical needs, right? What
mm,
I'm really struggling, what I think people really, really run into is how to bring those things together in an effective way. An agentic workforce means that you have agents that are running different parts of the business at the same time. For example, they're automating integrations
mm.
with Salesforce, with ERP, with, in logistics, there's legacy tools and other things. And being able to have it goes back crazy enough, or, not too crazy enough, but sort of like just saying that ironically, it goes back to data readiness. It goes back to that being the biggest bottleneck where understanding how data talks to each other, how these agents speak with each other. Because you could set up, I've seen, organizations with 20 agents running at the same parallel time, right? But the issue is the point of that's just basic automation if they're not talking to
Yeah.
each other and if they're not learning from each other, right? We've been able to do that in Zapier for like, since ChatGPT first came out, right? You just create a bunch of different flows. What you want are these autonomous tools that can help you make decisions, generate improved reports over time, improved, like I've been looking at how people are doing Figma agents, right? And design agents where it literally like makes suggestions and the suggestions for your app or designs gets better with time. It's not just something that you can generically look up and add a button here, add a button here. It's like based on your data, this is where your users are hanging out on your website, so you should focus on this more. If it's not talking to the right data, it's never going to reach those conclusions. It's just going to run automated tasks over and over. What it needs to do is it needs to get better, it needs to get faster, and needs to scale its recommendations by
Mm,
talking to other solutions, by looking at your organization holistically. And again, it's only an agentic workforce if it matches your workforce. It doesn't mean you need to adopt everything at once, but it does mean that if you don't know how operations and sales are talking to each other
right.
already by default, you might never truly know. Like you might never really build agents that help you with that problem. That's more of a business problem. And that's the part that everyone does tend to skip and realize and frankly, I'm happy to see it, but also unhappy that people are jumping the gun so much. But it becomes very apparent very quickly that I've just built all these agents and they're just doing stuff, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a not a means to an end. Even it's just like running some automations that again, like you could have done with other tools, but you're not realizing the full potential and you're not actually seeing like the real results that some of these other companies are seeing, which are double, triple timing and running laps around what your business might be doing. So again, you want to be ahead of the competition and you want to keep thinking about how to beat them. And a lot of them are just skipping steps here. Yeah.
And how do you, I mean, I think that's kind of one of the key points here as we see
Yes.
kind of the evolution, right, of the kind of
Sure.
AI landscape. So to your
Sure.
point, we kind of had, and I'm sure that I'm contradicting, I'm sure there's a much more structured, researched
No worries.
process to this. But, in my mind, you have like AI 1.0,
Yes.
and that is kind of the bots and the more simpler
Yep.
implementation. that we've
Yep.
seen the last few years.
Hmm.
Kind of, I think it was 2023 when the first ChatGPT kind of
22
massive,
even.
was it 22? I can't remember. The
Right
first
at the
like
end of 22. Yeah. Yeah.
November, whenever they first released their
Yep.
model, and it kind of became a thing to the rest of the world. So
Yes.
we're only a few years in there, but again, that was kind of really like the GPT based, chatbot based
Hmm.
kind of implementation. Now, recently this year, I think we're seeing a lot more activity on the agent side,
Yes.
starting to hear, right, the word agent a lot.
Hmm.
Again, these being, AI with agency, so making decisions, being able to do more than they were to just respond in a conversational kind of manner. But you started talking, Nikhil, about which, and I think that was what is interesting and important for us is
Hmm.
talking about the move from these agents to agentic teams and the
Yes.
integration, or as you called it, the augmentation
Hmm.
of the workforce. And so this is something I'm really interested in also exploring as well with you. How is that different? So you were just talking about,
Yes.
some of the tools,
Hmm.
and now we have the agents. How do these agents interact with the humans, with the
Yeah.
workforce to make a consolidated, holistic workforce? And how can we make sure that that is the one that's kind of optimized and successful?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be completely honest in sort of my perspective and what I build from, but also I'll look at both. I'll look at kind of the industry and what I'm seeing working. So I think a lot of articles, a lot of Business Insider, a lot of Bloomberg is talking about how the chatbot part of it is still, it's like you're talking to it on a daily basis. You're having water cooler chat with it. And yes, I mean, that does sound attractive. And that is very like, it's possible. Like, I think we are going to see a lot of that voice activation. I love Whisper Flow. Shout out. Like, it's not even related exactly to this topic, but like I love tools that allow me to like type faster, do things faster on my Mac. It just like makes using my MacBook faster, right? And it feels a little bit like a coworker because most of the work I do on my MacBook is work related, right? And obviously, I think that with Siri, they're trying to integrate a lot of Siri apps and ChatGPT apps that will then connect to business tools as well. So I on the go, I could be in my headphones and ask it to do things right and have a conversation and get the reasoning out. And there's all these great opportunities, and it sounds having a front end is super nice, but oddly enough, and very similar to what the value of AI has always been, what I'm seeing from the world of like shadow, we'll call it shadow AI,
Mhm.
and in a positive way. There's two definitions. One definition of shadow AI is that you don't know that it's AI, and the other definition is that it's just in the background. So I'm going to talk about the background. Like there's AI back there somewhere doing something, but it's being proactive in its response to you. You don't have to prompt it. You don't have to
Mhm.
speak to it. It comes to you with a report. It comes to you a daily summary. ChatGPT is experimenting with this right with the news, with weather and everything. And very similarly for business, it's going to be I want to have a conversation when it has something for me. Right now, a lot of it is
Mhm.
I have to go prompt it to get something out of it. You could set up timers, you could set up reminders, but it's a lot of work and a lot of even mental capacity to go to an agent and again, a workforce means that you're probably talking to a supervisor agent for a certain responsibility for a certain tool. And to clarify what I mean by agentic workforces too is like it's the next step of hierarchy, right? So we had ChatGPT, which was kind of the end all be all, like it could talk about anything, could do anything, right? Then we went into agents, which are just like multiple, tools running sort of, like I said, sort of parallel, but not necessarily interwoven with each other. Then there's like agent orchestration, which is this concept of like you have a supervisor agent that manages a lot of smaller agents, and agentic workforces is the like I don't know what the next buzzword is going to be, but I don't know how you get any crazier than this. It's basically that there's a set. It's much like a company. There is a call it a mirror on the agent side, right? Where there's a couple of VPs of different departments. There's supervisor agents under them, right? And then there are several agents that are specific to different tools that might have their own supervisors, right? It's a longer way of creating that like branched out hierarchy. And it usually, and this is the key word here, it usually mirrors the responsibility of an organization. Now, the point of agents is that it also thinks of ideas that people previously couldn't. But the
Mhm.
management layer, the governance layer, is that the supervisor agent goes up to another layer that filters out data, right? That makes sure that okay, I'm going to send a report out to Nikhil, who's the CEO of something, and then but the CTO needs a totally different report with totally different formatting and totally different data. It means that there's more layers of data processing and almost data readiness for an executive to see so that the decision made is not just like straight from the source raw output where I have to sit there and, sift through hours and hours of data that, again, because a lot of agents used to just like spit out like, I think this is for a CTO, I think it's for a CEO, and then you have to prompt it to get to like filter it down. This would mean that the tasks and the reports and the outcome that you're getting are all going through a similar governance process and through a similar flow as to what any company would, right? If you're at a certain layer, management layer that's not the C-suite, there's no reason an agent should be giving you information that only C-suite can get. Very common mistake, very big issue. Frankly, I've even seen chatbots where people are just letting agents run wild, and vendors, customers are getting employee only detail, right? Because
Oh
they're
my.
they're running. Yeah, it's very like it's just negligent. It's just I hate to say it, it's just like you built an agent for one thing and you forgot that it's also feeding. It's like, oh yeah, they can talk to my agent, which also talks to my support team and also whatever. And if you just have things that are like, if you got wires being crossed, this grounds for losses. This is grounds for like major issues, right? And so all that being said, agentic workforces are the closest thing we get to every team member on a team has is sort of a co-pilot or multiple, right? If you're like the Jira admin, you might have, there might be an agent for Confluence and for Jira and for Trello and all that Atlassian suite, like separately, right? But as the Jira admin, you speak to it, it gives you suggestions, it connects to other data points like, oh, here's what's coming in from the support requests, here's what's coming in from internal IT requests. And like, these are things that start to marry each other very well. But again, they're there to augment your work and to feel like they are just in time for you rather than just like a tool that's useful for everyone in the organization at different times. It's like it's there for you every day. And this
Mhm.
hierarchy allows us to filter down and prepare that data to the best, most fine, like granular level, which is what we want, right? So that our daily work is more impactful and we have agents that can help us just get things done again on a daily basis every day that we show up for work. So
So
yeah,
even though the
long answer.
structure is
Yeah.
similar, like is mirrors, right, what we already have in our
Yes. Yeah.
organizations, I
Yeah.
think that's a really interesting point is that it's not competitive. So when you talk about, for
No.
example, not replacing, like that example that you just mentioned. So for
Yeah.
example, those of you who are in a technical field or in software, Jira is a bug and issue tracking software. So that's a great example where Nikhil, like as you mentioned, you might have an AI agent who is responsible for updating and monitoring all of the activity
Mhm.
happening in that system. In real life today, we would never, unless you're a massive organization, you wouldn't really
Yeah.
hire someone to
Good
spend,
point.
to just be a Jira administrator, especially not in a
Sure.
smaller
Yeah.
business, right? Like, so this is an example where you could have, as you mentioned, you can have an agent whose job it
Right.
is to perform that work and is highly specialized and trained there and is now complementing, as you said, kind
Mhm.
of the information and data and reporting through this agentic team, and it can complement and augment the humans that are working in this capacity. So again, like
Yes.
even though we can, like yes, that is work that could be performed by a human. It's very
Sure.
unlikely to be funded,
Right.
funded work. And so, there you've given a great example, I think, of just a small way where you can build this agentic team and have it
Mhm.
kind of augment and interact nicely with existing human teams. So,
Yeah. And a Jira admin example is probably, you're right. It's probably a little bit too big. And I'm thinking of like a larger mid
yeah,
market, like who start to bring on those things. But at the
yeah,
same time, to your point, it's like, it would be like an IT, like a lone IT manager at a small business or something who just kind of manages all the software and stuff. Like,
yeah,
why? Yeah. Like there is probably another IT management agent, but then it supervises the software and helps. Again, it is like, then it can break down to all the softwares that you're using. And yeah, then you don't have to have admins for them. And you do get recommendations and proactive suggestions on how to make it better and when to notice potential spend issue, if there's budgeting, if there's other things that even just like at the foundational level of having those software set up and having them talk to each other, there are challenges and there are things, and humans have to be ready to act on it, right? Humans have to be ready to get the data prepared, make sure these tools are playing friendly, making sure that there's no,
yeah,
frankly, like sometimes tools like share data and it doesn't go correctly through it. We need humans to verify that. AI is definitely not fully there yet where it can say, hey, that lead, whatever, let's use like a CRM, right? That CRM data came from a website, whatever, the de-anonymizer or something. I don't know. Like, I don't want to get too technical, but it's like it got the data totally wrong, right? It mixed across wires, one
mhm,
faulty request. And if a human didn't catch that, that's like, you might think you have $1 million lead in the pipeline when it really accidentally like just interpreted it the wrong way. And And that's the part that humans need to be there for. And that's why it's all complementary. It's like it's kind of a DNA strand. You weave in and out of like giving a little bit to AI, then it's back to you for validation and for processing and for decision making. Then back to AI for some of that, you know, pipeline management or optimization. Then coming back to you for making big decisions like doing some, pipeline cleanup or whatever, right? And so it's just kind of it creates this like symbiosis, which you really want to get to. Yeah,
Yeah. So let's kind of dive into some of the details there. So
sure, sure.
we had and for everyone on the line, the guide that we have as a gift is going to go into more details specifically about how to prepare yourself to implement AI teams
Mhm.
within your organization. So Nikhil's prepared for us there. I think it's a 10-step process to kind of prepare for your agentic team implementation in 30
Mhm.
days. And it's very
Yep.
structured approach to how to do that. But stepping back a bit and looking a little bit of
Mhm.
the wider picture, um, Nikhil, can you share with us some of your overall kind of best practices for,
Yes.
building this agentic workforce and what that looks like, how people should kind of
Yeah.
get started?
Absolutely. I mean, I think some of the biggest things is like with any good business, but really harping on this again, like set North Star, set like limits, like some level of, guided and scalable goals and limitations on how much you're going to experiment with this technology and how you're going to get ready and how you're going to track it, right? I mean, KP, establishing what's important to your business and how quickly you can handle. I mean, I've even seen a problem where sometimes AI is a little too good and brings a large influx of customers that got like companies can handle, right? And that's a problem too, like understanding like what do you say no to? When do you turn off the machine a little bit and make sure that it's focusing on other things? Those are still important. Don't skip North Star metrics and don't skip some of those like essential tools and terminology and things in that regard too. So that's like a high level thing, but I wanted to just make sure that that's like a best practice that's in general for any business owner. That's best practice, but also for AI, it does not change. I think another best practice is I'm not saying necessarily, like I said earlier, like good to experiment with a lot of tools, but definitely even keep yourself focused on that too. Like there will always be a better tool that gets sold to you, right? There'll always be a new SaaS platform, a new Y Combinator startup, and I've seen many incredible agentic AI builders or whatever. But like again, try to pick a few that work well for your budget, work well for your business. You don't need to try every new one in the market. You don't need to keep switching for your business. I do recommend having some that you stick to and that you learn. And then again, like if you scale out of it, then you can upgrade or go to another tool at that point. But don't overcomplicate that part either, because some people definitely do, and then it's time to market is much more slower. So that's a problem as well. Resource allocation too. I mean, I'm actually shocked at how many people don't talk about this one, but make
Mhm.
sure that your team members are ready to receive and ready to have conversations about this. Right, make sure that like read the room a little bit. Right, if there's other struggles in your business and maybe they can be solved by agentic AI, make sure that you're make sure that you're spitting out and working on ideas with the right team members who can tackle this without a lot of distraction and with a lot of focus at the time, because I do think that that's critical. And again, some people like to just do the whole like let's burn everything to like else to the ground and let's jump on this AI train. But best I would be giving you a bad practice in that case. It really does require a level of I think the word is architecting. That's the kind of my word of the year. Is that not just stuff like software architecture or agentic architecture, but architecting the flow of your business, right? Like what are the major gaps? What are the major challenges? Who can work on it? Who can, like a business owner can definitely try to do a lot, but you might need help. You might need buy from other team members and I guarantee you now, brute forcing almost never works out the way that people want to. Micromanaging, we've heard this all before, right? The same issues still persist, right? So thinking about that is critical. And I also think like, to be completely honest too, like don't follow the gimmicks. I think a lot of the industry is really, really obsessed with gimmicks right now, but I am going to harp on like follow the revenue, follow on wins that
Mhm.
can prove that agents can save you money. Again, customer service tends to be low hanging fruit. I see in HR, like just making sure, for God's sakes, like agents can help process payroll and make sure that there's things found there, like other opportunities to optimize budgets, or hey, a team member left, so let's have our software costs go down a little bit this month, right? Like these are all critical things that are easy wins, and there's no reason to necessarily jump for the moon. Again, kind of related to those North Star metrics, but also just making sure that you scale, like focus on building blocks and modular approaches rather than just kind of like let's throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, right? I think it's very much a quality versus quantity of implementation. You don't need 100 agents at the start. You might get to that point if you build an agentic workforce, and you might mirror, but build it piece by piece, right? Build, again, understand that governance, understand at what different, what different points, and how complex it must get for your business, right? An agentic team, an agentic workforce alludes to the fact that you have all these tools that are going to be talking to each other without your input, right? And you have to understand what that means, and you have to understand what the implications of that are. And being able to give up that reign and give up that control is something that you have to sit and consider with yourself, your co-founders, your executives, your team members. All these things are kind of back to that resource allocation part. Just make sure people are, and readiness, right? And then, yeah, I think the other best practice too is to, I would say, like optimize early and often, but
Mhm.
strategic, like with strategy in mind, right? So again, if certain things are not working, a lot of people are tempted to just again try a new tool out, try a new AI out, refactor the whole prompt, but really break these things down and always look back to what the core fundamental problems of your business are. It kind of goes back to basically like bad data in, bad data out is one quote that I have with AI, and the same thing goes for like bad business in, bad business out. Like if your business doesn't even have a good system for document tracking, I do recommend, and it's funny, a lot of those tools are AI powered. They'll help you leverage AI to structure your data better, to make sure you can organize better, make sure it can auto generate some folders, even Google Drive, right? Focus on those things too. Don't skip the necessary steps and building blocks, because yeah, across every implementation I'm seeing, that's where there's, I mean, I think it's some insane stat, but like there are like 95% of companies report that they probably rushed into AI a little bit quickly. It doesn't mean they necessarily lost a lot of money, but they admit that they like did do their research beforehand, right? And they didn't
Yeah.
look into some of the things like into basic business practice, like again, looking at North Star metrics, looking at where the productivity is going, and what some of the challenges are with resources and different teams, and understanding those cores, and then giving them, thinking of AI in the context of that, and not just in, oh, well, I saw this company can do it, so I'm just going to try to replicate it. That's always going to be the better way to go. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. I feel like that was kind of a lot of different answers, but that was like four or five good methodologies in there, which basically all boil down to the same thing: is like making sure you're ready, making sure you can allocate the right resources, making sure not to like overcomplicate, right? And then not to make it too simple either, but finding the right balance. And then early and often optimization. But again, never just ripping it all out and trying it again, but steady as it goes, and really focusing on how AI can introduce more revenue and save you more money tomorrow, rather than just shoot for the moon because some use case looks cool,
Yeah.
a reference you saw or a post you saw or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that does go back to what you mentioned at the very beginning about the North Star. And, when we,
Yep.
jokingly say garbage in, garbage out, that definitely
Yep.
applies to data. It definitely also applies to strategy, right? So,
Yep.
how many companies, you know, unfortunately, just don't maintain their own kind of annual strategic planning,
Yep.
and this, there's the waterfall kind of impact of those decisions or lack of decisions. So I think, we have to consider the use of AI and teams, um, again, how they relate to the business objectives and goals, as you mentioned at the beginning, and making sure that there's really a plan for that before diving in, right? So
Yeah.
something important
Yeah.
to
I mean,
consider.
just
Yeah.
the basic like high level thing I would tell people is like understand how your tools will talk to each other, right? I mean, if you already have tools that integrate with each other, because a lot of them do have, Zapier or some sort of integrations, like think about that data, right? Think about that flow, and think about how an agent could pick that. Like that's probably the best way to look at it, is understand what the limitations of those integrations are, and build agents that can potentially remove those limitations, right? And even chain them further, right? So again, your CRM is talking to your website solution, which is talking to your newsletter, which is talking to your other marketing channels, and then your funnel builders. And like these things all propagate on each other, but you have to look at it as a flow first and then build, rather than just like throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I think that is still one of the biggest detractors and one of the highest, revenue losses that are happening. And it's time is money, right? So you're losing time when you're testing these things and just seeing what sticks, rather than being a little bit more strategic. To your point, Alex, bad strategy and bad strategy out. Yeah.
Great. We have a couple more questions lined up here, but I want to make sure that we do leave time for
Sure.
questions from some of the audience. So,
Mhm.
for those of you who are with us live, if you want to drop your questions into the chat, that would be great. And then we'll make sure that we leave some time to cover them. So, and just in the meantime, there we go. So, Nikhil, we've talked a lot already today about teams and kind of the integration from a
Hmm.
technical perspective. We also
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, you mentioned two things. One is, I think, seeing these teams for their ability not only to kind of execute, but to
Hmm.
be kind of creative.
Yes.
And so, I guess two things. How do we ensure that kind of creativity, that we're making good use of the AI for bringing,
Hmm.
the additional layer? And then the other point that you mentioned as well, which is kind of the culture and the cultural integration with our existing teams. So um, how do we implement kind of AI teams with our human teams and find that balance, if that is a good way to put it, of making sure that it's not replacement, as you said, it's not competitive. We see these
Yes.
agents as complementary and they're helping the human workforce. How do we do that while still also giving room for them to be creative and proactive?
Yeah. In a similar sort of theme that was running through the whole thing is like give it a solid foundation to start with, which really starts with looking at how your company works together, right? How teams work together, how departments could, if they're not talking to, how they could work together, or if they are, how they're talking together, how people are talking to customers within your organization, how people are talking to vendors and other partners within your organization, and just up the hierarchy, right? What are people looking for, and how are they interacting with, a step up, not even necessarily cross department, but just even within their own departments, right? What does hierarchy look like? And I think from that you get a lot of really, really critical info that you can build off of, right? And improve on. Is that again, it's back. It goes back to like not skipping steps. Where sometimes you just have to like look and holistically think about. All right, there are inefficiencies in the way that and gaps into how our customers talk to some of our team that talks to customers or our vendors or partners or people that we're working, like even working with other consultants or something, right? Like there's all these opportunities to take a look at that and have a basic understanding. And then the creativity part comes from when you're writing the prompt, when you're building out those AI agents, it's giving them parts of that foundation. It's giving them the guardrails, right? Make sure marketing doesn't have all of sales like pipeline data, right? Because that's a governance, that's more a governance than anything. But it's also making sure to write in there and make sure that the prompts are set up to say, but hey, if you have ideas for efficiency, if you have recommendations based on how X tool talks to Y tool, and then you can explain how the tools currently talk, and then ask it to make recommendations and to prompt you before it acts on those things. That's kind of the strongest thing that I've seen. Is again, it's like you're building when you build the actual agent, you tell it to put the human in the loop based on how existing human in the loop is, based on existing decision making process. All these things work together to to set up this foundation that in turn allows you to have agents that are ready to go, right? And they're still creative and still, but also still productive and also still efficient at doing what they need to do best. So, yeah, that's a bit of a soundbite right there, but hopefully helpful.
That's great. I do see some questions coming in, and we'll
Mm.
make sure we cover those. So keep them
Yep.
coming, everyone. Um, Nikhil, let's talk about. I know there's lots to go through.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
let's, for everyone here who's kind of a little, as we mentioned, it can be quite overwhelming, and we're wondering,
Sure.
where do I
Of
get
course.
started? What do you think is step one? What is the kind of immediate kind of takeaway or take home that people can leave today's session and say, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm gonna get started with this. What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say it's interesting because I do there's a few different exercises I do at different companies, and it really does depend on industry and size and where you're at with technology already, right? But I'll give the most powerful one I've seen is where a leader maps out what their team does on a daily basis, rather what they think their team does on a daily basis, right?
Mm,
And that's just like that's an org chart with task management, right? What tools does this person manage? What tasks? What responsibilities, where does the person travel, if there's that involved, like whatever, right? Like just literally like breaking it down to the very from the executive team to the new employee or the interns, right? And then from there, it's then obviously clarifying and making sure with the correct parties that is the correct process of the org chart, and that's how data moves across an organization. Creating what you get out of that is a collaboration, just like an overall artifact, which is a flywheel of how things cycle, how tasks, data, process, everything cycles, delivery cycles through an organization, right? And then that in turn is how you start to build out agents. Right? Okay, well, we can build an agent for this tool that does this task and start to take this off the plate of this, person who does this task every day, right? And I should clarify, I think I might have said it, but I'll just like reiterate strongly. It's the first exercise to understanding what people do on a daily basis. I've talked to, people all day about like, okay, yeah, it's useful if AI helps you generate a quarterly report or helps you generate a year-end budget sheet or something, right? Because it is that time of year. But the real opportunities, the real efficiency comes from understanding daily to semi-daily use cases, right? What can AI do every day or every other day? Not even in a week. That's still too long. The point of agents is that they help
Mm.
in real time, day to day, 24/7. Like, and even think about like what, and then once you build out that like graph, right, of like what people are doing, think about what's not being done. Think about places that you need to hire for, but maybe budget constraints, or maybe you haven't found the right person. Think about what does that like extra department, what would that look like, right? What would three extra departments, what would more people in your company look like? Having that exercise also is a very creative way to get to thinking about how agents are going to work as well. So I also could say, I mean, obviously, learn ChatGPT, learn Claude, learn prompt engineering, learn about reasoning and human in the loop, agents and just like what agentic frameworks are generally. I can give that advice, but again, that doesn't actually mean anything if you don't know how to apply it to an opportunity to make more money and deliver more efficiency and obviously save more money for your business too, and really stick to that point of being a business that can scale, that can grow at the rate you want it to. And a lot of that does start. I know it sounds like a basic exercise, and maybe you've already done that part of the exercise. But again, like people should consider, if I had more teams, if I had 100 people, if I had 10 more people, what would that look like? And that is usually a great place for understanding how to build agents and lets you really get creative with it, right? Because I don't have, for example, my companies historically haven't had like a design team. I bring in, contractors from a bench or whatever, like just being open about that. It's not usually like an in-house designer, but now with AI, like I can have it build brand guidelines for me. I can have it, give like again, this real-time feedback based on website performance. And it says, okay, this part needs to be optimized. This button needs to be optimized. And then that goes back to UI and UX, right? And that,
Yeah.
even if there is a person on the other end, it's just this gap. And now there's like, I feel confident that I technically have a design nowadays. I have a designer I work with more full time, but a lot of their work is with an AI agent at their side, not necessarily 10 other designers. And a lot of that came from understanding what would it look like if you did have 10 other designers who could be online 24/7 helping you out. So there's an anecdote even internally on how I sort of, build solutions and services and products and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely doing that analysis with the team of the work that they're doing on a daily
Right.
basis.
Right.
Can see that being like a very valuable exercise to unearth opportunities, and probably also gives an opportunity to look at what their potential is for what they could be doing. So again, like, we talked
Yes.
about not replacing people, it's kind of doing that imagine if exercise with your team.
Yes. Yes.
If Sally is currently doing these 18 things that are quite administrative in nature, and if, 15 of those 18 tasks were removed and automated, what else could she be doing that would actually be, more valuable? So there's probably
Correct.
still that element that you described before of supervision and review.
Mhm.
But again, doing this analysis, I think could be really very valuable, as you said, for kind of what the quick wins are, for getting certain tasks to be replaced um, immediately and performed by these teams,
Yes.
leveraging and kind of freeing up staff to do higher value work, right? So that seemed to
Mhm.
be that a kind of core message you had for us earlier. I want to
Yeah.
jump to a question here from Fran. Um, is structuring more about how files are hierarchically, the content in the files, or both? And what are some things to consider regarding structuring documents so that AI can
Mhm.
get the most out of them? Good question.
Yeah, the second part of the question is definitely like that requires a much longer sort of discussion probably, and I'm always happy to help. Like I guess I have the free call offer, right, and can explain more there. But that's like a whole, we could do a whole other 10-hour session on how to structure data, because it is the biggest challenge. I think it's probably one of the biggest challenges and biggest blockers to AI adoption at scale right now. So I'll answer like sort of high level. So it is about how files are. Yes, it's absolutely their hierarchy, it's their access, it's the content of the files, it's the format of the files, it's the the just the like the very the live are they live files that are constantly being updated? Are there files that are only created once and then set and forget, right? It's like these are all things that dictate to an AI. And if it does not understand those contexts, it can fall flat in some very important places, especially I would say biggest one being with like if AI does not know this is a live document that's constantly changing, it takes that it takes the document as a policy, not as a living document, and then it skews all the data to follow a policy or a stricter set of rules rather than understanding that it might be fluid in nature, right? So under that structure, it unearths one problem, unearths another problem, unearths another problem. But the point of it is that every aspect of a file or a data point in a database is critical to AI, no matter what, no matter how big, no matter how small. Again, because its interpretation or how it takes it, it could be taken as gospel, it could, or it could be taken as a cog in the machine. And you want to make sure you influence it to take one or the other. Not, and also if it looks at everything as a priority or everything as a low priority, that is again and also an issue, right? So you don't want to do extremes. You want to make sure it's prioritizing the content, material, files, data, all that stuff. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. But definitely, I crack up thinking about it because I do those workshops very often with a lot of clients, which is just even with just leaders, I just explain to them like how AI thinks about it. Because even ChatGPT doesn't really like tell you, but because my team is so obsessed with figuring it out, and a lot of other teams are, and we have so much data about how it thinks now, we break that down and can give more specific results. But yeah, Google Gemini, by the way, crazy enough, being in my opinion the worst of the way that it reads data seems to be different every time I use it. So I'm having trouble recommending it as much these days. But like Grok, Claude, Mistral, ChatGPT, Copilot, all those do a pretty good job if you do what I'm talking about, where if you show it the structure, prioritization, clarify these things for it, then it adapts quite quickly. Luckily. So yeah.
Great. And Fran, would definitely encourage you to book some time with Nikhil and chat a little bit more. We can geek out on this data structure and other
Yeah.
aspects to make sure that you guys are set up to do that the right way. Nikhil, just we're coming up on time here, so I
Yes.
want to make sure that we get to the last kind of points. Just kind of looking ahead. So, what do you think the future of AI in business looks like, and what gets you the most excited about what's coming up?
I love that question because I have like a fun answer for it. It's not even very technical, but it is like a very future of business, sort of like optimism. So I think we're about to see with all these considerations that I talked about, right? Understanding, I think we're about to have some of the most educated on their business owners we've had ever in history. And it means that we're going to have more visionaries on average who truly understand the nature of their companies. We're going to have more internal management layers or people who are rising up the ranks, understand the data they're using, the tools that they're using, and the opportunity to get ahead of customers more than ever. I think it's a renaissance for small business. I think
Mm,
it's a renaissance for mid market. I think where corporations move way too slow, and I will tell you right now, they move slow, there will be now an opportunity for for people and the way we do business to be basically at an accelerated rate without having to double the human capital, the human labor. It's working smart, not hard at scale, right? And I think that's what excites me more than anything is that if people are coming up with these visions, if they're putting the time in now into thinking about data structures, into what their team, what if scenarios, the what would happen if I added one more supporting role or had this tool talk to another tool another way. If we're doing this now, it will set up your business to have essentially uncapped growth in the correct manner, right? In services, in products, even I know one of the most mismanaged, I'll call it, industries that I've ever worked with is nonprofits. I love working with them, and they have very interesting projects and they're doing good for the planet and stuff like that, right? But they have some of the most mismanaged internals, and it's always chaotic, high rate of turnover, whatever. I'm already seeing agents change these things, right? Where there are people, even if there is a high rate of turnover in employment, even if there are grants that are changing in prices and changing in complexity and whatever, agents are able to help the smallest of nonprofits that are sometimes 10 people do what a nonprofit could do with 100 people, right? Which
mm,
and it all comes from leadership. It all comes from the leaders of these businesses, management. It's not just like and even giving sort of agency to like lower level people to help be a part of the decision making process as well. It's helping
mm,
them stay afloat and it's helping them actually like it's not necessarily a race anymore. It's more of like it's like what is it like? It's slow and steady wins the race,
mm,
but in a I don't know, kind of like I'm trying to figure out catchy remix way of saying it, where it's like you don't have to be. It's steady, still wins the race. It's making sure you're not just like doing everything really recklessly or quickly, but you can also be fast. It's like you can be fast and steady and still win the race, if that makes sense. And all that I think is just like a total shift in how we do business, period. And so I wanted to sort of, give that. And I guess I can't prove that with any statistics on a mass scale yet for mid market because I think those don't exist based on how early this
Yeah.
all is. But I already am seeing the effects of what I'm referring to. And again, sometimes it just takes that extra, like that 1 week of work on setting this up changes your business for a lifetime. And that's what I'm really excited about. And I
Mm.
hope that it gives the superpowers that mid market and small business have been looking for quite some time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Great equalizer potentially. Well, with that, I can't believe it. We're already at time. And I want to thank you, Nikhil. Thank you to everyone who joined us live. I know we had some little technical difficulties getting set up earlier today. So happy that we did manage to have a great conversation. And for everyone, please check your junk and spam. We will be sending the follow-up links later today or tomorrow, as well as a recording in a few days as soon as it's available. And yeah, wanted to thank you so much, Nikhil, for the conversation. I know we can talk about AI
Of
implementation
course.
in business like all day long.
Yeah.
So again, I want to invite everyone to do that. The three things again that we mentioned, you'll find in the email. One is to download the guide that we have prepared for you, which is this 30 days to prepare for agentic teams in your organization. And so that will be available for you for free. As well, we do invite you to book your own time to meet with Nikhil and talk about your company and your needs and what you might want to do from an AI implementation and product development perspective. And just talk about kind of innovation and tech and what's important to you and your company. And lastly, we do have this offer for our new health audit. If you need some help to take a look at your company from a distance perspective and kind of see where you have opportunities for improvement. So all of those will be headed to your inbox today or tomorrow. And hope that you enjoyed today's session and you'll come back and join us again in 2 weeks. And we'll have another great live conversation. So that's it for today. Thank you all so much. And hope to see you again soon. And wishing everyone a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate it. And thank you, Alex, for having me and for the whole Consulta team for having me as well. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Nikhil.